Nirmala Thakur welcomes you on her channel EduExcel. Today we are exploring education in Bihar, a state that has long battled challenges like low literacy rates, lack of infrastructure, and unequal opportunities. But in 2025, the landscape is shifting. At the heart of this transformation is the National Education Policy of 2020, which has promised to make learning more inclusive, flexible, and skill based across India. For Bihar, where many students come from the marginalized and rural communities, this is especially significant. The policy emphasizes learning in one's own language, vocational training, and accessible education for all, values that remind us of Bihar's own experiment from decades ago, the Charwaha Vidyalayas. These were schools designed to provide education to the children of landless laborers and cattle grazers, ensuring that even the most disadvantaged had a chance at learning. Fast forward to 2025, and we see echoes of that vision in the NEP's push to reach learners who were traditionally excluded, whether due to poverty, geography, or social barriers. The big question now is how far has Bihar come in making education not just available but meaningful and equitable for every child? In this episode, we look at how NEP policies are actually playing out on the ground in Bihar, the lessons we can draw from earlier experiments like Charwaha Vidyalayas, and what all this means for the future of marginalized communities in the state. Bihar, with approximately 10% of India's population and a predominantly young demographic, has a significant impact on the national educational averages. As one of the India's most populous states, Bihar's progress or educational challenges directly affect India's ability to achieve the universalization targets set in NEP 2020. India cannot meet its 2030 educational goals without substantial improvements in states like Bihar. The educational challenges, particularly the high dropout rates, low secondary school enrollment, and digital divide, risk creating a substantial skills gap in Bihar's workforce. With less than a quarter of youth completing higher secondary education and limited digital preparation, a significant portion of Bihar's population may lack the educational foundation required for higher skill employment, potentially constraining economic growth and perpetuating poverty cycles. Shri Lalu Prasad Yadav, then Chief Minister of Bihar, in the early 1990s launched the Charwaha Vidyalaya experiment in 1991, starting the first school in Muzaffarpur. The schools targeted children from marginalized communities, especially those who herded cattle, offering them education alongside their daily work. This bold initiative aimed to bring learning directly to those traditionally excluded from formal education with slogans like, "O cattle grazers, learn to read and write." The concept drew international interest from organizations like UNICEF and teams from the US and Japan. Despite initial enthusiasm and 354 such schools being opened, administrative challenges and political turmoil led to the scheme's decline by the mid 90s. Nonetheless, Charwaha Vidyalayas remain a notable attempt to make education accessible to marginalized groups in Bihar. This historical example ties closely to Bihar's current educational reforms under the National Education Policy 2020, which also emphasizes inclusion and skill based learning for disadvantaged communities. Charwaha Vidyalay's core philosophy and teaching approach share significant alignment with several objectives of India's National Education Policy NEP 2020, particularly in promoting flexible, inclusive, and context sensitive education. Key alignment points: flexibility and contextualization. Charwaha Vidyalaya was designed to accommodate the lifestyles and needs of children from nomadic and marginalized communities, ensuring that schooling did not disrupt their livelihoods. This mirrors NEP 2020's emphasis on flexible schooling, outreach to out of school children, and context based curriculum delivery. Number two, vocational and life skills. Both Charwaha Vidyalaya and NEP 2020 promote the integration of vocational livelihood and practical life skills with academic instructions so that children receive relevant education linked to local economic realities. Inclusivity. NEP 2020 stresses the inclusion of disadvantaged social economic groups, girls, and children with disabilities, exactly the cohort Charwaha Vidyalaya targeted through its community based schooling approach. Mother tongue and local languages. NEP 2020 recommends primary education in the mother tongue or regional language, a principle that Charwaha Vidyalaya also employed by using local language and vernacular methods in teaching. Next point, community and experiential learning. Charwaha Vidyalaya engaged local volunteers, youth, and context based projects, much like NEP 2020's call for community participation, experiential learning, and integration of education with local knowledge and environment. Non formal and mobile education. During the pandemic, Bihar adopted mobile learning centers, catch up courses, and mohalla schools, approaches similar to Charwaha Vidyalayas informal non campus education for hard to reach children. The difference and gaps of Charwaha Vidyalaya and NEP 2020. Digital infrastructure. NEP 2020 has a major focus on digital literacy and integration of technology in education. Charwaha Vidyalaya, as a model launched in the 1990s, did not address digital learning tools, which are now central under NEP 2020. Formal recognition and scale. NEP 2020 operates at a nationwide scale with guidelines for formal schooling, whereas Charwaha Vidyalaya was a region specific experiment that faced operational and funding challenges, limiting its scalability and long term impact. The Charwaha Vidyalaya, or the Cattle Grazers School, is an innovative educational initiative created in Bihar, India to provide primary education to children of nomadic cattle grazers who were otherwise excluded from formal schooling due to their migratory lifestyle. Here is a SWOT analysis of the Charwaha Vidyalaya model. The strengths. The school model is uniquely designed to serve an undeserved nomadic community, ensuring basic education access for the marginalized children. Curriculum and schedules are adaptive to the migratory lifestyle, reducing absenteeism, dropout rates compared to mainstream government schools. By offering education in students' mother tongue and incorporating local contexts, the model enhances engagement and learning outcomes. Charwaha Vidyalaya empowers communities by involving local stakeholders and parents in decision making. Now, the weaknesses. These schools often face inadequate infrastructure such as lack of proper classrooms, teaching materials, and sanitation facilities. Shortage of trained and motivated teachers willing to work in remote migratory settings can affect quality. Limited financial resources and dependency on government NGO funding create sustainability concerns. The curriculum may be less standardized, impacting students' readiness to transition to mainstream schools. Now let's discuss the opportunities. Aligning Charwaha Vidyalaya with state level education reforms and NEP 2020 allows for, for increased funding, integration, and policy support. Use of mobile classrooms, blended learning, digital tools, and community teachers can enhance reach and teaching quality. Collaboration with local NGOs, corporate social responsibility programs, and educational foundations can bring in resources and innovations. Scope to develop the model further for other nomadic and migrant communities in India and beyond. Now, what are the threats of this? The declining government focus or shifting policy priorities can threaten funding and institutional support. Social stigma, discrimination, and community reluctance towards formal education remains barriers. Migration patterns may shift unpredictably, complicating student tracking and continuous learning. Risk of merging or closure under larger government rationalization drives or lack of recognition for unique solutions. The attitude of bureaucracy and casteism had significant impacts on the implementation and sustainability of the Charwaha Vidyalaya education initiative in Bihar. Bureaucratic attitude. The Charwaha Vidyalaya was an innovative project started by Shri Laloo Prasad Yadav aimed at providing education to marginalized children involved in cattle grazing, adapting education to their daily lives. However, bureaucratic inefficiency and poor coordination among multiple government departments undermined the project. Agricultural and education departments had overlapping and unclear responsibilities leading to lack of proper management. Many schools suffered from irregular teacher attendance and weak monitoring by officials, which caused declining quality and eventual closure of several centers. There was often apathy and lack of accountability within the bureaucracy in ensuring initiatives' success. Casteism and social barriers. The schools primarily served children from marginalized, lower caste, and nomadic communities who traditionally faced social exclusion and discrimination. Caste based prejudices within society and sometimes within administrative processes posed significant barriers to enrollment, attendance, and community acceptance of these schools. Social stigma and systemic caste bias limited interaction between students from different castes and created challenges in integrating these schools into mainstream educational frameworks. These social dynamics weakened the impact of the educational program despite its inclusive intent. Overall impact. Despite its visionary approach and international recognition, Charwaha Vidyalay's effectiveness was hampered by bureaucratic lethargy and caste based discrimination. The inadequate administrative support and persistence of casteism constrained the scale and sustainability of the initiative. However, however, the project remains an important case study emphasizing the need for systemic reforms in governance and social attitudes to make education truly inclusive for marginalized communities. In summary, the Charwaha Vidyalaya initiative's struggles highlights how bureaucratic attitudes and casteism in Indian society and administration affect grassroots traditional educational reforms for disadvantaged groups, making institutional change and social inclusiveness crucial for success. Now, let's discuss how to make the good intention workable. To make Charwaha Vidyalaya workable and impactful in today's context, the model should be modernized through innovative, flexible, and technology enabled strategies that address both the unique needs of the nomadic children and broader education quality goals. Integrate mobile and digital learning. Deploy mobile schools or learning units, example buses or vans fitted with teaching materials and internet access that can move with nomadic communities as piloted in Rajasthan. Use mobile learning platforms featuring micro learning modules, videos, and gamified quizzes to engage students who study on the move. Community participation and custom curriculum. Involve the local community, including parents and elders, in planning and running the schools to ensure local relevance and acceptance. Incorporate curriculum flexibility so lessons fit the lived experiences and languages of the nomadic groups while keeping core academic goals in line with the state and NEP education frameworks. Teacher training and support. Recruit and train teachers who are adaptable, willing to travel, and skilled in digital pedagogy for mobile or remote teaching setups. Provide ongoing professional development, both in person and online, to improve teaching standards and familiarize students and staff with new educational technologies. Social and welfare schemes. Collaborate with government schemes like Samagra Siksha or targeted DNT oblique nomadic education schemes for financial sustainability, midday meals, student uniforms, cycles, and scholarships to reduce economic barriers. Establish periodic health checkups and mental health support tailored for migratory children's challenges. Monitor, evaluate, and scale. Implement systems for monitoring attendance, learning outcomes, and welfare impact using mobile apps and digital records that travel with the children. Collect community feedback and evaluate program effectiveness regularly to adapt strategies and maximize outreach. Partnerships. Partner with NGOs, tech companies, and CSR programs to provide resources, digital infrastructure, and curriculum innovation. By blending mobility, community participation, technology, and targeted welfare, Charwaha Vidyalaya can be rejuvenated for today's educational landscape, making equitable education accessible to even the most mobile and marginalized children. School for every child or children for every school? This question always is a debatable one. So, concluding now, Charwaha Vidyalay's essence is that it is community centric, child friendly, flexible, and locally adapted education, finds strong resonance with NEP 2020's reforms. However, the newer policies incorporation of technology, broader formal structures, and national coverage beyond the original Charwaha Vidyalayas blueprint, offering a roadmap for revival and modernization of similar initiatives in India. Thank you for listening to this episode. EduExcel is here to empower leaders to manage a child centric safe schools by measurement, establishing systems and processes in schools in the state board, ICSE, CBSE, and international curriculum schools. And it helps the foundational stage in training the teachers and coordinators in developing scientific temperament and critical thinking in schools. And it also does one to one mentoring of teachers, coordinators, vice principals, and principals. The email ID and WhatsApp number is there on this slide. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Thank you once again.